It was the Galactic Dragon Exchange Center's busiest day of the season on Station Helios 7. Rich collectors from 6 different fields crowded into the clean building, their credit cards ready for the perfect buy. The air was full of excitement, and the display pods lit up softly to show off the best dragon specimens in the area. There was something amazing in each pod. Dragons with scales that sparkled like gold. Others had wings that looked like stained glass when the light hit them. Some breathed fire in beautiful emerald and sapphire colors. These were the best, the most perfect, and the most expensive. A small dragon pressed herself against the cold metal wall in the very back corner, past the recycling bins and the closet for cleaning supplies. Nobody had bothered to ask her name in years, but it was Kaida. She was young, maybe 7 cycles old, but her body showed that she had been through a lot. Her scales were a jumbled mess. Some parts were a dull brown that faded into a muddy green, and there were random gray spots on her hide that looked like mistakes. She looked old and worn out while other dragons shone. She had a white cloud over her left eye because she had an infection that wasn't treated properly when she was a baby. She could only see vague shapes and shadows through it. Her right eye was sharp and smart, and it was a deep amber color, but most people never looked at it long enough to see. Her wing was the worst part. The left one hung at an odd angle because it had been broken and healed wrong, causing it to twist inward. She couldn't fold it right against her body. It just hung there, always reminding her of the fall that changed everything. A group of Vorten traders walked by her corner. One pointed a clawed finger at her and laughed, making a sharp clicking sound. Look at that thing. How can something like that even be alive? The exchange center must really need room. His friend, who was wearing a lot of expensive jewelry, wrinkled his nose in disgust. Goods that are broken. In my area of work, we kill off bad hatchlings right away. It's the right thing to do. Kaida tried to shrink herself down. She had heard these kinds of things all her life. There were times when she thought they were right. Maybe it would have been better if she had never been born. The facility manager, a tall Zentari with 4 arms and a face that always looked angry, came over to her corner with a data pad. Rexel had been trying to get rid of Kaida for 3 months. Still here, he said quietly as he wrote. Food. Taking up room. Not worth anything. Kaida didn't say anything. Talking only made things worse. The doors opened on their own with a hiss. A person came in and looked completely out of place among the rich collectors. His blue coveralls were old and stained with grease and engine coolant. His boots were worn and scuffed. He had a heavy tool bag hanging from his shoulder that made noise with every step. Rexel's face lit up with an idea. Kaida thought it was a terrible idea, but he seemed happy with himself. Are you the mechanic? Rexel yelled and ran over. The person stopped and pulled a dirty cloth out of his pocket to clean his hands. That's me. Trevor Briggs is my name. I got a call about broken environmental systems. Is there something about the temperature changes in the display area? Yes, that's right, Rexel said, already leading him to the back. The cooling units keep turning on and off the wrong way. Very bad for the goods. But first let me show you something. Trevor was confused as Rexel took him straight to Kaida's corner. Rexel said, I have an idea. Fix our systems today and I'll give you a free dragon. Completely free. Not a single credit will be charged. Trevor's eyes found Kaida in the dark. She looked up at him with her one good eye, expecting him to be disgusted or sorry for her. But the look on his face was different. His brown eyes were calm and interested. Not judging. Her? Trevor asked as he slowly moved closer. Rexel said, It's. Yes. Great for someone who doesn't have a lot of money to spend on a mechanic. There are no delivery fees or purchase prices. Just take it off my hands and we'll call it even on the service fees. Trevor crouched down but stayed away from them. He didn't try to touch her or reach out to her. He just stared at her. Looked hard. He said, Hey there, in a low voice. His voice was soft and kind even though he was tired from a long shift. Are you okay? Kaida's heart skipped a beat. No one had ever asked her that before. Never. She doesn't talk, Rexel said in a dismissive tone. Most likely brain damaged along with everything else. Hey, I'm being nice here. Most of the time I would have to pay to get rid of damaged stock. You'd really be helping me. Trevor slowly got up. His jaw tightened and when he spoke again his voice was sharp. She's not it. She's a living thing. And she's not a broken piece of stock. Call it what you want, Rexel said, waving his hand. Are we going to do business or not? Trevor turned around and looked at Kaida. She was shaking as she tried to figure out what was going on. Was this person really protecting her? Or was this a new kind of cruelty she hadn't seen before? What will happen to her if I say no? Trevor asked. Rexel shrugged. I'll have to clean up the space eventually. Standard ways to get rid of things that can't be sold. Trevor's hands turned into fists. Kaida could see him thinking about what she had said, and his face got hard. I'll take her, he said with authority. But not as payment. Because it's my job, I'll fix your systems. She comes with me because no one should be treated like trash. Rexel blinked in surprise. Are you serious? You really want that? Stop calling her that, Trevor said, his voice getting sharper. Bring me the papers for the transfer. And then show me these cooling units so I can leave. Kaida was in a transport crate 20 minutes later. But these cages weren't like the ones she was used to. The door was unlocked. Trevor had put a thermal blanket around it and a water container inside. It's just for the trip, he said as he adjusted his tool bag. My store is in Sector 9. It takes about 15 minutes by shuttle. You can come out whenever you want to. There's no lock on the door. Kaida checked it out very carefully. He was being honest. Her claw easily opened the door. Trevor smiled a little. Look, I don't like cages very much. Never felt right to me. Kaida watched through the crate's ventilation slots as the exchange center got smaller below them as the shuttle took off. She had been in that corner for 93 days, counting them all. She didn't know what would happen next. Trevor, this person, seemed different from anyone else she'd met. Kaida had learned, though, not to get her hopes up too much. When hope was taken away, it hurt more than anything else. She noticed something strange, though, as the shuttle turned toward Sector 9. For the first time in a long time, the tight knot of fear in her chest had loosened a little. It's possible that things could be different. The shuttle went down toward the industrial area, and Kaida's new life began. Sector 9 wasn't nice. It was the busy center of Station Helios 7, where cargo haulers got fixed, where shift workers lived in small apartments, and where nothing was clean or perfect. The air smelled like engine coolant, welding plasma, and recycled oxygen that had been through the filters too many times. Trevor's shuttle landed in front of a small repair shop that was stuck between a parts store and a gas station. The sign above the door said Briggs Repair and Maintenance, in letters that were hard to read. One of the lights was out. He carefully opened Kaida's crate. Welcome home. Well, to my store anyway. It's not much, but it's honest work. Kaida carefully climbed out, and her twisted wings scraped against the floor of the shuttle. She winced but tried to hide it. People hurt you more when you show weakness. She had learned that lesson. The garage door opened with a grinding sound that meant it needed to be fixed. There was organized chaos inside. Metal shelves held engine parts along the walls. The center had a big workbench with tools and diagnostic equipment on it. The floor was clean, but it had been stained with years of oil and grease that no amount of scrubbing could get rid of. Trevor had set up something in the far corner that made Kaida stop in her tracks. There were a lot of thick thermal blankets stacked up like a nest. There was a portable heat lamp nearby that was already warming the room. There was a water dispenser with a big bowl that was easy to reach. There was even a cushion in the middle that was worn but clean and put there carefully. Trevor said, looking almost ashamed, I set this up while you were being processed at the exchange center. I wasn't sure what you needed, so I just guessed. We can change it if it's not right. There are 3 settings on the heat lamp. When the station cuts power to industrial areas at night, it gets cold in here. Kaida walked up slowly, thinking there would be a catch. A door to a cage that slammed shut. A shock collar to turn on. Something. But there was nothing. Just a warm, safe place that smelled like clean fabric and where someone had actually thought about how she would feel. With one claw she touched the blankets. They were soft. Not the rough synthetic material from the exchange center, but real fabric. You did this for me? Her voice was barely a whisper and was raspy from not talking much for years. Trevor was putting on a pair of work gloves and was already heading toward the engine on his main table. Of course. You will be here for a while. Might as well be at ease. He said it like it was clear. Like anyone would do this. But Kaida knew better. No one did things like this. Not for dragons like her. She carefully settled into the corner, where her broken wing could finally rest without metal pressing against it. The heat lamp gave off a soft warmth. She wasn't shaking for the first time in months. Trevor started working on the engine, and as he had promised, he talked while he worked. This is from a truck that carries cargo. For 2 years, the captain didn't pay attention to the maintenance schedule. For 2 years. The fuel injectors are now completely broken. He took out a part that was blackened. Look at this. It should be silver. If you don't change your filters, this is what happens. Kaida saw him work. He moved quickly and with purpose. He took care of each piece, even the ones that were broken. He'd mumble to himself, trying to figure things out. Not the valve for compression. That's okay. Could it be the relay? No, hold on. The wiring harness. There you are, you sneaky issue. She was very interested. How systems worked together, how energy moved through engines, and how mechanics made sense. It made sense in a way that nothing else in her life ever had. Hours went by. Trevor worked hard and looked over at her every now and then. Not staring at her or looking at her like she was broken. Just looking out for someone like a friend would. The door to the garage rang. A Dravian pilot came in, pulling an anti-grav cart with a sputtering engine core behind him. Briggs, I need this done by tomorrow. This thing is dying and I have to make a delivery run to Sector 4. The pilot's eyes fell on Kaida. His look went from angry to disgusted. What in the seven hells is that doing in here? Are you running a zoo for sick animals or a repair shop? Kaida made herself small and shrank back into her corner. She thought, here it comes. The remarks. The teasing. Trevor didn't even look up from what he was doing. She's not up for a talk. But really, what is it? A pet of some kind? Because I don't want animals to get near my engine. Your engine, Trevor said, his voice getting colder, has a broken plasma converter and a magnetic containment field that isn't working. You have about 6 hours before it breaks down completely and lets radiation out of your cargo bay. That's what we're talking about. Not her. The pilot from Dravia turned pale. His kind was especially sensitive to radiation. 6 hours? Can you fix it? Yes. It will cost you 800 credits for parts and work. Take it or leave it. Okay. Just fix it. Then we won't talk about anything else but your ship. Trevor finally looked up and met the pilot's gaze. Get it? The pilot quickly nodded and left, seeming very willing to help. Trevor went back to work like nothing had happened after he left. Kaida, on the other hand, saw that his hands were shaking a little. He was mad. Angry for her sake. No one had ever done that before. You didn't have to protect me, she said softly. Yes, I did. Trevor picked a wrench from his collection of tools. You're not here to be insulted. You are here because all living things deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. That includes you. He said it in such a matter-of-fact way that it sounded like everyone should know it. Trevor brought her a plate of synthesized protein that night after the last customer left. He had warmed it up and cut it into the right amounts, even though it wasn't fancy. He put it down and stepped back, giving her room. Not sure what dragons usually eat? This is what I have. Let me know if you need anything else. 2 levels down is a supply depot. Kaida looked at the food. In the warm corner. At this strange person who had taken her away from that terrible place and wanted nothing in return. Why? She finally asked. Why did you pick me? Trevor sat down on his work stool and wiped the grease off his hands. He thought about it for a little while. My dad was also a mechanic. Kepler 12 station. He told me something when I was a kid that I will never forget. Trevor's brown eyes were calm as he looked at her. He said that how a person treats the powerful or the perfect doesn't matter. It's how they treat people who can't give anything back. People whose society has given up on. He didn't care. You were in pain. I could help. That was all the reason I needed. Kaida felt something break inside her chest. Not breaking but opening. Like a door she hadn't opened in years. She slowly ate the food, enjoying every bite. Not because it tasted good but because someone had made it for her with love. Kaida slept well for the first time in years that night, wrapped in warm blankets with the heat lamp softly glowing. No cold metal. No bright lights. Don't be afraid. Only safety. When she woke up in the morning and saw Trevor already at his workbench, humming softly while he calibrated a fuel injector, she realized something amazing. She wasn't living anymore. She was alive. Kaida learned about routine after spending 2 weeks in the garage. Every morning at 6 o'clock, Trevor would come to the station, start the coffee maker that sounded like a dying engine, and get to work. She saw everything. The way he figured out what was wrong, how he tested circuits, and the careful logic he used to solve each mechanical puzzle. Trevor also watched, though. He paid attention to things. He saw that she was always shifting her weight and never getting comfortable. How she jumped when her twisted wing touched something. How pain would sometimes flash across her face when she thought he wasn't looking. Trevor took a medical scanner out of a locked cabinet on the 15th day, after closing the garage door behind the last customer. It was a costly piece of equipment, likely worth more than half of the tools in his shop. Kaida looked at it nervously from her corner. Can I show you something? Trevor asked, staying close to his workbench. Don't worry. I just want you to see this. She nodded slowly. He turned on the scanner and aimed it at his own arm. A holographic display came up that showed bones, muscles, and blood vessels in great detail. This is a scanner for medical purposes. It shows what's going on inside a body. People who fix cars and doctors both use them. There isn't much difference between bodies and machines. Everything needs to be set up correctly to work. He turned it off and put it down carefully. I see that you're in pain. Your wing. I might be able to help you, but only if you want me to. First, I need to scan it to find out what's wrong. But I won't touch you without your permission. I promise. Kaida's heart raced. Someone had looked at her wing before when she was still a hatchling at a breeding facility. They said she was broken and stopped treating her injury, letting it heal wrong because she wasn't worth the medical supplies. But Trevor had kept his word so far. He had given her food, warmth, safety, and respect. Things she thought were made-up stories about dragons who were happier. Okay, she said in a whisper. Go ahead and look. Trevor slowly walked up with a scanner in his hand. Let me know if you want me to stop. Anytime. I really mean that. She opened up her broken wing. The movement hurt, and there was a sharp pain that went from the shoulder to the wingtip. She tried to hide it, but a small sound came out of her throat. Easy, Trevor said softly. Just need to get a clear reading. Not touching yet. As it went over her wing, the scanner made a humming sound. The holographic display appeared, showing the twisted bone structure in gruesome detail. As he looked at it, Trevor's face got serious. Okay, he said in a low voice. I understand the issue. Here and here is where your wing was broken. He pointed to 2 places on the screen. But it got better even though the bones were out of place. Look at how this part grew back at the wrong angle. It's pulling on all of these tendons and muscles. That's why it hurts all the time. Kaida looked at the picture of her own broken body. Is it fixable? Trevor was quiet for a while as he zoomed in on different parts. I'm not a doctor. But I've worked with structures my whole life. Ships, stations, and machines. The idea is the same. Everything needs to be aligned and supported correctly. He opened a new screen and began to draw. We might be able to make it better by making a custom brace that slowly pushes the bone back into place and strengthening the muscles that support it with exercises. It won't happen right away. Could take a long time. Maybe longer. Months? Kaida felt like hope and fear were fighting each other. Time is needed for healing, Trevor said. But you're still young. Your bones are still getting bigger. That helps us. He looked right at her. I can't promise that everything will be perfect. But I can promise things will get better. If you're willing to give it a shot. Kaida thought about how she would have to live with this pain for the rest of her life. She thought about never flying, never folding her wing right, and always being the broken dragon in the corner. I'll try, she said. Trevor smiled and it showed in his eyes. Then let's get to work. Trevor didn't sleep much for the next 3 days. Kaida would wake up in the middle of the night to find him at his workbench making parts. He used a light titanium alloy, the kind that costs a lot and is used for racing shuttles. He carefully shaped it, heated it, bent it, and tested how flexible it was. He made padding out of medical-grade gel, which is the kind of gel that is used in hospital beds for burn victims. He wrote code for nano-adjusters that could change the angle and pressure of the brace by very small amounts. He said under his breath, "This needs to be perfect," as he ran the stress calculations for the 5th time. Too tight and we hurt the tissue. It won't help if it's too loose. He finally held up the finished brace on the 4th night. It was beautiful and useful at the same time. It was curved to fit the shape of her wing and had soft padding at every contact point. Are you ready? Trevor asked. Kaida shook as she opened her wing. She gasped when the brace first touched her. Trevor stopped moving right away. He asked, pain or just a surprise? Both, she said. We'll take it slow. On a scale from 1 to 10, tell me. We stop right away if it goes above 7. He worked with endless patience, making changes to straps and aligners. Whenever Kaida's face showed too much pain, he'd stop and change something. It took 2 hours to fit. Kaida's wing was supported by the brace when he finally stepped back. It was strange to feel pressure in places that had never been pressed before. But there was something else under the weirdness. Something she could barely remember. Thank goodness. It's not pulling, she said in disbelief. The weight. It's not all dragging down anymore. Trevor smiled. The brace is shifting the weight around, taking the pressure off the broken parts. Now things get tough. Physical therapy. After that, they worked together every night. Trevor would show her how to do gentle exercises. Small movements that are carefully controlled. Just a little bit more. Keep it for 5 seconds. Release. It hurt. Some nights, Kaida wanted to give up, take off the brace and hide in her corner. But Trevor never pushed too hard. He seemed to know just when to stop. He said, Pain means we're working the right areas. But getting hurt means we went too far. There is a difference. You'll learn how to feel it. He taught her how to stretch. Showed her how to massage the muscles that were tight. Explained how scar tissue worked and why moving around helped break it up. 3 weeks into treatment, Kaida was able to extend her wings 6 inches more than she had been able to since the injury. She looked at it and couldn't believe it. Trevor was checking the pressure settings on the brace when he saw her face. "What's going on?" "Everything's fine," Kaida said, her voice full of emotion. "I just forgot that my wing could do that." He looked at her outstretched wing and saw that her muscles were finally waking up after years of not being used. "That's just the start. Give it some time." But it wasn't just the healing of the body. There was something else going on. They talked during those therapy sessions at night. Talked a lot. Trevor told her about his childhood on Kepler-12 and how his father taught him to see the beauty in things that were broken. Dad always said that the best repairs were the ones that didn't make things look new. They were the ones who paid respect to what the thing had been through. Scars have stories to tell. They show that you lived. Kaida told him about how she hatched and how her clan turned her down because her scales didn't match. About the people who collected her and thought she was a mistake. About the years of silence because talking only made things worse. Trevor said firmly, "You're not a mistake. You're just the way you're supposed to be. The universe never makes mistakes. People get things wrong when they look at them." One night, while doing a very hard exercise, Kaida's wing hurt a lot. She yelled, and Trevor stopped right away, which helped her muscle relax. "I'm sorry," she said with a gasp. "I'm doing my best." "Hey, look at me." Trevor waited until she looked him in the eye. "You're doing a great job. Do you know how strong you have to be to do what you're doing? Most beings would have stopped trying. You keep coming back. That's brave." Kaida's good eye filled with tears. "I'm just a dragon that is broken." "No," Trevor said in a low voice. "You are a dragon that is getting better. There is a difference." Kaida's wing was more comfortable that night than it had been in years. The brace was now so familiar that it felt like a part of her. And as she fell asleep, she thought of something very important. Trevor wasn't just fixing her wing. He was showing her that she was worth fixing. That her pain was real. That she was worthy of care, patience, and hope. Kaida let herself think about a future where she might be able to fly again for the first time since her injury. That hope, as fragile as a baby bird's first wing beat, was the best gift anyone had ever given her. It was a bad morning for Trevor. He had a fusion drive from a luxury yacht on his workbench, but it was all in pieces and nothing made sense. He had been staring at the same connection port for 20 minutes and mumbling to himself. "The readings say the power flow is coming from the secondary relay, but it should go through here. It's not possible unless someone rewired the whole system backwards, which would be crazy because it would blow the capacitors in less than an hour of use. Try the torque stabilizer on the left," a rough voice said from behind him. Trevor turned around so quickly that he almost spilled his coffee. Kaida stood there with one claw pointing at the engine diagram on his screen. He opened his mouth. "Done. Open again. You just said something. You spoke." Kaida said, "I've always been able to talk." Her voice was rough from not using it, but it was clear. "I just never had a reason to before now." Trevor sat down hard on his work stool looking shocked. "How long? I mean, when did you?" "Since it hatched. Every dragon can talk. Most people choose not to around other species." She got closer to the workbench to look at the engine. "The last owner went around the main relay system. Look at these burn marks. They sent everything through backup channels. The power flow will make sense if you realign the torque stabilizer." Trevor looked in the direction she was pointing. His eyes got bigger. "You're right. The way the connections are set up looks like a jury-rigged bypass. But how did you know?" Kaida sat down next to the workbench, making sure not to hit her healing wing. "I've been watching you work for weeks. Paying attention to everything you say. I know how systems work. How energy flows, how the structure stays strong, and how parts fit together to make things work. It makes sense to me in a way that nothing else ever has." Trevor took his diagnostic tool and looked at the stabilizer she had pointed out. The readings backed up what she said. "I would have spent hours trying to figure this out. You saw it in a few seconds." "I've been watching mechanics my whole life," Kaida said. "At the breeding center, the exchange center, and everywhere else I've been. Everyone thought I wasn't paying attention. No one cared if I learned. But I was always watching and listening." Trevor put down his tools and really looked at her. "Why didn't you say anything before? Why wait until now?" Kaida's good eye got a little dimmer. "What should I have said? I was a piece of property. Goods. Things don't need to talk. Things that try to talk get punished for it. How do they get punished? Trevor's voice got quiet and careful. Collars of silence. Training with shocks. Isolation. She said it like it was nothing, like talking about the weather. People who collect things don't want dragons that talk. They want things to put up. Decorations that are quiet and pretty. A dragon that talks but is broken is even less useful than one that stays quiet. Trevor's hands turned into fists. That's cruel. That's normal. Or it was. Kaida looked around the garage where the walls were covered in tools and parts. But you're not like them. You talk to me like I'm important. You explain your work in a way that makes sense to me. You need to ask me before you touch me. Nobody's ever done that. She pointed at the engine. I thought that maybe talking was worth the risk. Because you might really want to hear what I have to say. For a long time, Trevor didn't say anything. He then stood up and reached out his hand to the workbench. Do you want to help me fix this, right? Kaida's heart skipped a beat. Are you serious? Absolutely. You clearly know more about this than I do right now. He brought over a second stool. Tell me what you see. They worked together for the next 3 hours. While Trevor fixed the problem, Kaida talked about the bypass system. She would point out links he had missed, suggest different ways to do things, and catch mistakes before they happened. She had a lot of technical knowledge. She knew how to manage power, heat, and stress points in buildings. She had learned a lot by watching for years and turned it into real knowledge. How do you know how fast things expand when they get hot? At one point, Trevor asked, Wow. Dragons naturally know how to use heat and energy. We make our own fire, so we naturally understand how heat moves. When you add that to watching hundreds of engine repairs, the patterns become clear. By early afternoon, they had fixed the fusion drive. When Trevor did the last test, all of the systems showed green. Perfect calibration, he said as he looked at the numbers. This is better than what the factory said it would be. Kaida said, the factory specs had a problem with the cooling cycle. I saw it in the design plan. We fixed it while putting it back together. Trevor looked at her with a sense of wonder. You are not just smart. You're very smart. Kaida felt her scales get hot, which was like being embarrassed but warmer. No one had ever called her smart before. In Sector 9, news spread quickly. The mechanics, pilots, and station workers all lived and worked close to each other, so news spread quickly. 3 different customers asked the next morning if the Dragon could look at their problems. Phillips, a cargo hauler captain, showed up with an engine that 2 other repair shops couldn't fix. I heard you have someone here who can solve problems that seem impossible. Trevor looked at Kaida. She nodded. They worked together to find a microfracture in the fuel distribution network that regular scans couldn't see but that caused a series of pressure failures. Kaida found it by listening to the engine's sound pattern and noticing something strange in the harmonic frequency. Phillips said, That's not possible. You figured that out by sound? Kaida said, Dragons can hear very well. And engines make noise when they run. Every part has its own note. The song changes when something goes wrong. You just need to know what to listen for. Phillips paid twice as much as usual and then left to tell the story. More people came. An engineer at a station whose life support system isn't working. A mining ship that is losing power for no clear reason. A rich merchant whose fancy cruiser shook at high speeds. Kaida figured them all out. Some customers were nervous at first about dealing with a dragon. But Trevor didn't back down. She's my partner. You can either talk to her with respect or go somewhere else. Most people got used to it quickly when they saw results. A few people left and never came back, but Trevor didn't seem to care. He'd say, their loss, with a shrug. Being biased costs a lot. Costs people the chance to get the best help. One night, after a long day, Kaida and Trevor sat in the garage, which was quiet. He was cleaning tools while she practiced her wing exercises. Thanks, she said all of a sudden. Why? For listening. For making room for my voice. For caring about what I say. Trevor put down the wrench he was working on. Your words do matter. Your thoughts, your ideas, and your point of view. Everything matters. Anyone who made you think differently was wrong. Kaida stretched out her healing wing to see how far it could reach. It went 6 inches farther than it did yesterday. Progress is slow, but it is steady. I thought for years that I had nothing to give, she said softly. That I was just a broken mistake taking up space. And now? She looked at the engine they had fixed together, the diagnostic tools she was learning to use, and the data pad Trevor had given her to read technical manuals. Now I think I might have been wrong. They might have all been wrong. She looked him in the eye. Maybe I'm not broken. Perhaps I'm just not the same. And maybe some problems need something different. Trevor smiled, and the corners of his eyes crinkled up. Now you're getting it. That night, Kaida didn't just sleep in her corner. She had a dream. Dreams that were real, not the nightmares that kept her up at night. She had a dream that engines were humming in perfect harmony. Of fixing systems and solving problems. Of people listening to her, valuing her, and trusting her. And for the first time in her life, she was looking forward to the day when she woke up. Because she wasn't just getting by anymore. She was making something. Making something. Becoming something. She was becoming who she really was. And she was learning that the person she was worth being. The morning began just like any other. While Trevor worked on replacing a broken manifold on a mining shuttle, Kaida looked over the plans for their next project. Her wing was getting stronger every day, and now she could almost naturally fold it against her body. She had gotten used to the brace just like she had gotten used to breathing. Then the door to the garage opened and everything changed. A sleek private shuttle landed outside. It cost more than Trevor made in 5 years. It was polished to a mirror shine, and the custom energy shield sparkled in the station's fake light. The door opened with a hydraulic hiss that sounded like it cost a lot of money. Lord Vexor came out. He was a member of the Zentari nobility, tall and powerful, and wore robes that were probably more expensive than the whole garage. He wore jewelry on all 4 of his arms. Each piece had rare crystals in it that caught the light. His face looked like someone who had never been told no in his whole life. 2 armed and alert security guards followed him. Trevor wiped his hands on a cloth and walked over. "Can I help you?" Vexor said in a calm, smooth voice. "I'm not here to fix anything. I'm here to talk about your dragon." Kaida's scales felt like they were prickling. She stayed close to the workbench but kept a close eye on things. "She's not for sale," Trevor said right away. Vexor smiled like he knew what the answer would be. "At the right price, everything is for sale. I'm ready to give you 50,000 credits. That's more money than you'll make in 2 years of this boring work." "I'm not interested." 100,000 credits. Vexor took out a credit chip and held it up like bait. "Think about what you could do with that money. New tools. Grow your business. You can retire early if you want." Trevor's jaw got tight. "I said she's not for sale. At any cost. Be fair, human. She's just a dragon. And it's broken. I'm giving you money for something that isn't worth anything." Vexor moved closer and his voice got sharper. 200,000 credits. Last offer. "She's not something you can buy and sell," Trevor said in a voice that was as hard as steel. "She's a person. A partner. You can leave my store with your credits." Kaida's heart was racing. No one had ever stood up for her like this. No one had ever risked their life for her. Vexor's nice mask fell off. "You are making a mistake. Do you know who I am? What can I do?" "Don't care. Go away." Vexor said, "I looked you up before I came here." His voice changed to something darker. "You took her away from the exchange center. There are records of ownership. Legally recorded transfer of property. Station law says that dragons are rare assets. Collectible items." Trevor's face turned white. "That law is no longer in effect. But it's still a valid one." Vexor took out a data pad. "I've already made a claim with the station authority. In 3 days the hearing will take place. The magistrate will look over the papers that prove who owns what and the papers that show how the property was transferred. Then he'll tell you to sell her to me for a fair price on the market. Which for a broken item will be a lot less than what I'm offering now." "You can't do this," Trevor said, but his voice shook. "I already have. You can take my generous offer now, or you can lose her for a lot less money in 3 days. It's up to you." Vexor started to walk away but then he stopped. "Oh, and if you're thinking about hiding her or leaving the station, that would be stealing property that is in dispute. Station security would look for you. You would lose your business license and be charged with a crime." The guards went with him. The expensive shuttle took off, leaving Trevor and Kaida speechless. Trevor quickly opened the station's legal database on his computer. As he looked through property law, custody rules, and ownership laws, his hands shook. Kaida saw that he was getting more worried with each page. "It's real," Trevor finally said, his voice empty. "The law is old, dating back to when the station first opened. Dragons are considered property. The exchange center's certificates are legally binding. The magistrate will have to obey the law." Kaida said quietly, "Then there's nothing we can do." She had felt this way before. The heavy weight of what must happen. "Trevor, you should take his money. 200,000 credits. That's a lot of money. You could make your whole store better." "Are you crazy?" Trevor turned to look at her. "I'm not going to sell you. You'll lose no matter what. At least you get something out of it this way." Kaida tried to keep her voice calm. "I won't let you get hurt because of me. You've been kinder to me than anyone else in my life. I won't destroy everything you've built at the very least. Stop it. Just stop. Trevor ran his hands through his hair as he walked back and forth. There has to be a way. There must be some kind of legal loophole, precedent, or something. He spent the rest of the day going through legal papers. Kaida tried to help, but law and engineering were two very different things. The codes didn't make sense because they were full of exceptions and special cases that were contradictory. Trevor looked tired and defeated by the end of the day. He looked at the screen and said, "The law is clear. Without proof of personhood, the law sees you as property. And it's up to us to prove it. We would have to show that we are aware, independent, and able to make our own decisions." "I can talk. I can think." Kaida said, "I fix things. I already know that." "You already know that. But how do you prove it to a judge in a court case?" "That's not the same." Trevor rubbed his eyes. "Vexor's lawyers will say that animals that have been trained can do things. That intelligence doesn't mean you are a person. That station law is clear and we're just trying to find a way around it." Kaida felt like a heavy blanket of despair was settling over her. "So we've already lost?" "No." Trevor's voice got stronger with determination. "No, we haven't. Not yet." He opened a new screen and began to type. "We can't fight the law directly, so we fight around it. We need proof." Writing things down. "Proof that you're not property." "What do we do?" Trevor thought for a moment and then his eyes lit up. "Your job. Every repair you figured out and every problem you fixed. If I can prove that you've been working as an independent contractor, making your own choices and making money." "I haven't made any money. I've only been helping you." "But what if you had been?" Trevor began to look at their repair logs. "I'm going to change the dates on the payment records. I'll show that I paid you for every job you helped me with. It won't be a lot, but it shows that you have a job, not that you own something." "Is that against the law?" "The payments are real. I'm just writing them down after the fact. I should have been paying you from the beginning." He was typing quickly again, his energy coming back. "I'll set up an account for you at the station. Put the paychecks there. Having your own money and account is proof that you are financially independent." Kaida watched him work and something warm grew in her chest. "You're fighting for me?" "Of course I am." Trevor didn't stop typing to look up. "You're my partner. My buddy. And you have as much right to freedom as anyone else in the universe." They worked all night. Trevor wrote down every repair that Kaida had worked on, figured out how much she should be paid and set up her account. He got testimonials from customers who had worked with her. He built a case one piece at a time. But Kaida could still see the worry in his eyes as they worked. They had only 3 days to get ready to fight hundreds of years of legal precedent. The chances weren't good. Trevor put on his cleanest clothes on the third morning. Kaida didn't wear anything, which is normal for dragons, but she held her head high. "Thank you," she said as they got ready to leave for the hearing. "No matter what happens. For everything. For not seeing me as just broken property." Trevor said firmly, "You were never my property. And after today no one will own you." They went to the magistrate's chambers together after leaving the garage. Toward a hearing that would decide what would happen to Kaida. Toward a fight that looked like it would be impossible to win. But Kaida saw something as they walked through Sector 9. Other mechanics looked on as they went by. People who worked at the station nodded in agreement. People she'd helped in the past few weeks gave her signs of support. They might not have been as alone as they thought. Maybe fights that seemed impossible were still worth it. There were a lot of people in the hearing room. Word spread through Sector 9 faster than a leak in the cooling system, and it looked like half of the industrial district had come. People who worked as mechanics and cargo pilots stood next to each other. There were a lot of station maintenance workers near the back. A few curious merchants had even come to see what all the fuss was about. Magistrate Kelvin sat behind a high bench, and the harsh light in the chamber made his silver scales shine. He was a middle-aged Vorton who was known for always following the law. While he looked over papers on his data pad, his face was hard to read. Lord Vexor sat at the petitioner's table with 3 lawyers, all of whom were wearing expensive suits and looking pleased with themselves. They had brought well-organized files, holographic displays, and a lot of confidence. This was something they did all the time. Another thing to get. Another deal to finish. Trevor and Kaida sat at the respondents' table with only one data pad, which had their hastily put-together case on it. Trevor wore his best shirt, but it was still obviously a mechanic's shirt. Kaida's scales were clean and her wing brace was shiny, but she looked small next to Vexor's lawyers. David and Goliath, but David forgot his slingshot. Magistrate Kelvin hit his gavel. "This hearing is now in order. The case number is 7734 Delta. Vexer and Briggs are arguing about who owns and takes care of a dragon specimen. He raised his head. Lord Vexer, make your case. Kasha, a tall Zentari woman who moved with practiced grace, was Vexer's lead attorney. Thank you, Your Honor. This is a simple disagreement over property. My client wants to buy a dragon that Mr. Briggs currently owns. Mr. Briggs, on the other hand, won't sell, even though the dragon is considered transferable property under Station Code 47, Section 12. She made a hologram of the law that was relevant. Dragons are clearly listed as exotic collectible assets, as you can see. Like other property, they can be bought, sold, and traded. 6 weeks ago, the Galactic Dragon Exchange Center gave this specimen to Mr. Briggs. We have the transfer certificate right here. The document appeared in the air, official and damning. Trevor's hands were clenched under the table. Kasha went on, in addition, my client made several good faith offers to buy this asset. Mr. Briggs turned down all offers, even one for 200,000 credits, which is a lot more than what a damaged specimen is worth on the open market. She said, damaged, like it was a technical term, not a way to describe a person. Kaida felt the shame she knew all too well coming back. My client just wants the magistrate to make sure that he can legally buy this property for its fair market value. Because of her physical flaws and limited usefulness, our expert appraisers say that this dragon is worth about 8,000 credits. 8,000. Kaida wasn't worth more than a good used shuttle. Magistrate Kelvin nodded slowly. Mr. Briggs, what do you say? In the quiet room, Trevor's chair made a loud noise as he stood up. He looked scared, like he didn't know what he was doing, but he was determined. Magistrate, the law you cited is not correct. Kaida is not a thing. She is a living thing with intelligence, awareness, and the power to make her own decisions. Kelvin said, that's a strong claim. Can you show me? Yes, I can. Trevor turned on his data pad. Kaida has found and fixed 43 major system failures on her own in the last 6 weeks. Issues that other mechanics couldn't fix. She doesn't do what she's told. She thinks, analyzes, and comes up with answers. He showed repair logs, reviews from customers, and diagnostics from before and after. This isn't something that has been trained. This is real intelligence and creativity. Kasha smiled. Magistrate, a lot of trained animals can do hard things. Dolphins can use tools. Primates are able to solve puzzles. Doing tasks doesn't mean you're a person. It shows that training works. She hasn't had any training, Trevor said, his voice full of anger. She learned by watching. She knows more than just how to do things. She can not only put solutions into action but also explain why they work. Again, smart behavior. But not proof that someone is a person under the law. Kasha looked bored, like she'd won this fight 100 times before. Magistrate Kelvin leaned back. Mr. Briggs, I like how passionate you are, but I need more than just general intelligence. The law says that there must be clear proof of independent personhood. Self-determination. Independence in business. Do you have anything else? Trevor brought up his second point. I'm paying Kaida for her work. She has her own account with earned income at the station. That makes you financially independent. Kasha hardly looked at the records. Documentation made days ago that goes back in time. This is clearly a legal move, not a real job. The payment records start right around the time my client filed his claim. Everyone knew she was right. The date seemed off. Trevor's case was falling apart. Kaida could tell by the way his shoulders drooped a little that he was upset. Anything else? Magistrate Kelvin asked, and the way he said it made it sound like there shouldn't be. Kaida got up. Everyone in the room looked at her. I can speak for myself, she said, her heart racing but her voice steady. Isn't that worth something? People in the chamber started to whisper. For the first time, Kasha looked shocked. Magistrate Kelvin put up a hand to ask for silence. You want to testify? Yes. Kaida stepped forward, her wing brace shining. You want proof that you're a person? Here, I'll give it to you. She pointed to the roof. 3 days ago, the life support system in this room started moving air that was dirty. There is a small crack in the secondary filtration membrane of the carbon dioxide scrubbers. The main system is making up for it, but it's working at 117% of its capacity. In about 4 hours it will stop working altogether. Everyone in this room will start to feel dizzy, have headaches, and have trouble breathing within minutes of that. Magistrate Kelvin's eyes got bigger. He quickly checked his terminal and pulled up the system diagnostics for the chamber. His face turned white. She is right, he said softly. How did you know this? Because I know how systems work, Kaida said. I can hear the harmonics in the airflow. The flow rate isn't steady. The difference in pressure between the intake and output is 0.37 millibars off of standard. I wasn't taught to notice these things. I get these things because I think, analyze and solve problems. The whispers got louder. People were paying attention now. People have been telling me all my life that I'm broken. Goods that are broken. Something to show off or throw away. Kaida's voice got louder. But I'm not an object. I have ideas. I have things I like. I feel pain, happiness, hope, and fear. I choose what I do with my life. She stared straight at Vexer. You don't want to buy me because I'm worth a lot. You want to buy me because I'll help you. You collect broken dragons because we need the work so badly. You take advantage of beings who have no other choice. Vexer's face turned red. That's not true. I'm a real collector. Then why do you look for hurt dragons in particular? Kaida said. Why not ones that are good for you? Why not the best samples from the exchange center? Because damaged stock is cheap. Vexer got angry, but then he realized he had made a mistake. The room went quiet. Damaged stock, Magistrate Kelvin said again, slowly. You see these things as stock. The main lawyer for Vexer got involved. My client made a mistake. He meant, Trevor cut in, he meant exactly what he said. He runs a collection based on exploitation. Dragons that are hurt too badly or are different can't get high prices. Dragons are so desperate that they will put up with terrible conditions because they have nowhere else to go. There were more whispers in the crowd. People were putting things together and seeing patterns. Kasha tried to get better. Magistrate, I know this is all very emotional, but that doesn't change the law. There is no doubt about Station Code 47. I want to see the rest of Lord Vexer's collection records, Magistrate Kelvin said out of the blue. Kasha said, that's not important to this case. I'm making it important. This hearing is about figuring out who owns what and who is a person. If there is proof of systematic exploitation, that changes my decision. Now, Kelvin's voice sounded like steel. Lord Vexer, turn in your collection paperwork within the hour, or I'll get a warrant for station security to get it. Vexer looked angry but nodded quickly. Kelvin looked back at Kaida. You've shown that you're smart and aware of yourself. But I need more. Can you show that you really make your own choices? Kaida thought for a second. After that, she turned to Trevor. Trevor said 2 hours ago that he would take Lord Vexer's money. He said we could use it to win more legal battles in the future. To help other dragons. She looked the magistrate in the eye. I said no. I told him I wouldn't let him give up his values for me. I made that choice. It's my choice. I wasn't forced or trained to do it. Trevor nodded, which meant that what she said was true. I choose to work with Trevor because he treats me with respect. I could have stayed quiet and safe in my corner. I took this chance and spoke up. Kaida opened her wings a little bit, and the brace helped her do it. These are the things I want. My life. And I'm asking you to understand that I have the right to do them. There was no sound in the chamber. Magistrate Kelvin looked at her for a long time. Then he looked around the room at the mechanics and workers who had come to help her, and at the proof of her intelligence and independence. I am going to take a break for 2 hours so I can look over Lord Vexer's collection records and think about the evidence that was presented. He hit his gavel. We'll meet again to hear my choice. Trevor put his hand on Kaida's shoulder as people were leaving. You were great. Was that enough? She asked in a low voice. He said, I don't know. But you really gave us a chance. We had less than that this morning. They waited together, hoping that truth and justice would be strong enough to break through centuries of bad law. It seemed like 2 years had passed since the 2-hour break. While the chamber emptied, Trevor and Kaida waited in a small side room. They could hear people talking, arguing, and debating what they had just seen through the thin walls. Trevor walked back and forth, making his boots squeak on the shiny floor. I should have done a better job of getting ready. Should have hired a real lawyer. Should have. Kaida said softly, you did everything you could. More than anyone else ever has. It might not be enough. Then we'll take care of that when it happens. Kaida changed the way her wing brace fit, which was a nervous habit she had picked up. But I did get to talk. People at least heard me. I never thought I'd have that much. Someone knocked on the door and broke up their conversation. A worker at the station looked in. Mr. Briggs? People outside want to talk to you. A lot of people. Trevor and Kaida looked at each other and then walked into the hallway. There were at least 30 people in the hallway. Engineers, mechanics, pilots, and shop owners. People Kaida had helped in the past few weeks. People who had seen her work, talked to her, and thought of her as more than just a broken dragon. A woman who was older than the others pushed to the front. Rita Chin was her name, and she ran a parts supply store 3 floors down. We want to give evidence. Everyone. If the magistrate lets us. Testify about what? Trevor wanted to know. About her. Rita pointed to Kaida. About how she isn't property. She's a real person. A coworker. A buddy. Kellen, a Dravian cargo pilot, stepped forward. 2 weeks ago, my ship had a problem that no one could figure out. 3 mechanics told me that I needed to get a new engine. 30,000 credits. I was about to lose my job. He was really thankful to see Kaida. She listened to my engine for 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Then she told me that a stuck pressure valve was giving me a wrong diagnostic reading. Cost me 50 credits to fix. She saved my whole life. She helped me too, another voice said. Trevor knew a young mechanic from the lower bays. I had a customer who was going to sue me because I couldn't fix their climate control system. Kaida found a coolant line that was going the wrong way that 3 diagnostic scans missed. I would have lost everything. More people spoke up, each with their own story. The mining foreman whose tools she had saved. The engineer at the station whose math she had fixed. The merchant whose ship she'd made work better. Rita said firmly, these aren't tricks or trained behaviors. This is someone who gets it, who thinks and who wants to do a good job. That's not your property. That's a person. Trevor's throat felt tight. Thanks. Everyone. I don't know if the judge will let you talk, but thanks for trying. When they came back to the room 2 hours later, there were twice as many people there. People stood along the walls, sat in the aisles, and filled every available space. Security at the station had to add more standing room. When Magistrate Kelvin sat down, he seemed surprised by the number of people who showed up. It was clear that Lord Vexer and his lawyers were not happy. Kelvin said, this hearing will start up again. I've looked over Lord Vexer's collection records and I have some questions. Kasha, Vexer's main lawyer, stood up quickly. Magistrate, those records are business records that are private. They don't matter in this case about one dragon. I don't agree. Kelvin used a hologram to show a list of names and the dates they were acquired. Lord Vexer has gotten 17 dragons in the last 5 years. All of them were put into groups based on how damaged, broken, or otherwise unwanted they were. All bought at prices much lower than the market value. He focused on certain entries. 3 were missing arms and legs. 4 of them had scale diseases. 2 of them couldn't see. 1 had very bad problems with their breathing. He looked straight at Vexer. You have a very specific way of getting things, Lord Vexer. Would you mind explaining it? Vexer moved around in his chair. I give homes to dragons that other people don't want. It's work for charity. Work for charity, Kelvin said again. Do these dragons do work for you? Yes, they help out around the house. Light duties that are right for their skills. Light duties. Kelvin opened another file. Based on your maintenance records, these dragons work an average of 14 hours a day. Fixing things, keeping systems running, and operating equipment. That's not easy housework. That's skilled work full-time. Kasha stood up again. My client gives food, shelter, and medical care in exchange for fair work. That's how things usually work with owned assets. Owned assets, Kelvin said, sounding thoughtful. But if these dragons are doing skilled work and making their own choices about hard technical problems, are they really just assets? Or are they workers? People in the chamber started to whisper. This is crazy. Vexer lost it and exploded. They're dragons. Ones that are broken. No one else wants them. I give them a reason to be, a purpose and value. If there weren't people like me who collect them, they'd be thrown away as defective stock. The room went completely quiet. Kasha looked scared too. Please, Lord Vexer. Be thankful. Vexer kept going, now standing with an angry look on his face. I save them from places where they throw things away. I give them jobs. I make them work. And this is how I get paid back. With accusations and lawsuits? Magistrate Kelvin's face had gone blank. So your work for charity is really just a way to get skilled workers who are desperate for work at a low cost. Workers who don't have any legal rights and can't say no. Under the law, they're property. Vexer yelled. I haven't broken any laws. Maybe not the letter of the law, Kelvin said softly. But its spirit for sure. Trevor got up. Magistrate, there are people in this room who want to speak up for Kaida. Kelvin looked around the crowded room. How many people? At least 40 people raised their hands. I understand. Kelvin thought about it for a moment. I'll hear from a number of potential witnesses because this case is so important and there are so many of them. Please keep your comments short and to the point. Rita Chin was the first to talk. She talked about how she hired Kaida to help her with inventory management and how Kaida had reorganized her supply chains to cut waste by 30%. That's not how animals act. That's how to think analytically and solve problems. Kellen, the cargo pilot, told Kaida how he had figured out what was wrong with his engine. She told me about the physics. She taught me what to pay attention to in the future. She didn't just solve the problem. She made sure I got it. They all gave their testimony one at a time. Every story added to the last one, making it clear that the person was smart, independent, and able to think in complicated ways. Dominic, a station engineer, told how Kaida had found a serious mistake in his math for a new environmental system. She knew how to solve equations with more than one variable. She saw a mistake I had made in the rates of thermodynamic transfer. That needs a lot of advanced math and theory. A young apprentice mechanic said in court that Kaida had taught her how to find electrical problems. She has a lot of patience. She keeps explaining things in different ways until you get it. That's not just knowing. That's being able to understand and talk to someone. After the 10th witness, Kasha tried to speak up. Magistrate, this is getting old. We know that the dragon has been taught how to do technical tasks. Who trained them? Kelvin cut in. Mr. Briggs didn't teach her. She learned by watching others. That isn't conditioning. That's learning. That's how you learn. He looked at the people in the crowd. I'm seeing a community that has accepted this dragon as a co-worker and a friend. Not as a tool or a pet, but as a person who deserves respect. Magistrate, Trevor said, can I say something? Kelvin nodded. Trevor stood up and looked at Kaida for a moment. After that, he spoke to the magistrate. I met Kaida 6 weeks ago in the worst place possible. She was thrown away, hurt, and sure she was worthless. I didn't bring her home because I needed a worker or wanted something. I brought her home because it didn't feel right to leave her there. His voice was steady and sure. Since then, she surprised me every day. Her intelligence, her kindness, and her desire to get better and grow. I don't own her. She's a friend of mine. She's my partner. And she should have the same rights and freedoms as everyone else. He looked Vexer in the eye and saw how angry he was. The law says she's a thing. But the law is wrong. People have to speak up when they know the law is wrong. Even if it costs them everything. There was no sound in the chamber. Magistrate Kelvin leaned back in his chair and looked at the data pads in front of him. Then he looked at Kaida and then at the crowd of people who were there to support him. This court will take a short break while I write my decision. He got up. 15 minutes. Trevor squeezed Kaida's claw as he left. You change things today no matter what happens. People saw you. I really saw you. Kaida nodded, but she couldn't say anything because she was so upset. The supporters stayed around them, a silent wall of support. Waiting to see if justice would win out. Waiting to find out if the voice of one hurt dragon was loud enough to change the world. It felt like an eternity to wait 15 minutes. There was a low hum of conversation in the room, and the air was full of nervous energy, like static before a storm. Trevor's leg bounced nervously. Kaida tried to stay calm, but her good eye kept looking at the door to the magistrate's office. Magistrate Kelvin finally came back. As he sat down, his face was hard to read. He started by saying, "This case has made me think about laws I've enforced for 20 years without question. Rules that were made when we didn't know as much about consciousness. When it was more important to be convenient than to be honest." He looked straight at Kaida. "The proof given today shows beyond a reasonable doubt that you are aware of yourself, can think through problems in a complex way, make decisions on your own, and come up with creative solutions. You talk about ideas that aren't real. You teach other people. You make choices that are right." Kaida's heart raced with hope. Also, Lord Vexer's own testimony and collection records show a pattern of exploitation that, while technically legal, goes against the basic principles of dignity and fairness that our society says it stands for. Vexer's face turned red, but he didn't say anything. Kelvin grabbed his gavel. Section 12 of Station Code 47 says that property is things that don't have their own consciousness. I have looked at the evidence and found that Kaida does have her own consciousness, so she cannot be considered property under current law. The gavel hit. Kaida is a free citizen of Station Helios 7 and has all the rights and protections that sentient beings have. It is not true that Lord Vexer made a claim. Case dismissed. The chamber exploded. People cheered, clapped, and whistled. Rita Chin put her arms around the person next to her. Kellen punched the air to show how happy he was. Trevor turned to Kaida, his eyes full of tears. "You're free. You're really free." Kaida couldn't say anything. When she realized what was happening, tears streamed down her scaly face. No cost. Not property. Not goods. Someone who has rights. Lord Vexer stood up quickly, his face twisted with anger. This is an outrage. I'll go to the sector courts. The magistrate from the colonies. This isn't over. You can appeal, Kelvin said in a calm voice. But I will suggest that a full investigation be done into how you collect money. I think other judges will be very interested in what we've found today. Vexer stormed out, and his lawyers had to hurry to catch up. His threats echoed down the hall, but they were just noise now. He had lost, and everyone knew it. People in the crowd congratulated Trevor and Kaida and gave them support. But in the end, they had to go back to their jobs, their lives, and their duties. Trevor and Kaida walked back to the garage in shock and silence. Trevor said as they walked into the familiar space, "I can't believe it really worked." Me neither. Kaida looked around at the workbench, the tools, and her corner with the blankets and heat lamp. Everything looked the same, but things were different. What happens next? Now. Trevor smiled. Now you get to choose. That's what it means to be free. But it was hard to make a choice. Within hours, the news about the hearing spread to all the station networks. The next morning, there were a lot of reporters outside the garage. By the afternoon, other stations in the area had heard the story. By nightfall, 3 dragons had come to the garage door. The first one was small, just past the hatchling stage, and its scales looked like they had been burned. The second one was older and didn't have her whole right foreleg. The third was huge but moved slowly because he had cataracts in his eyes. They were scared and desperate as they stood in the door. The burned dragon said, "We heard about the hearing," her voice shaking. "We heard that there is a place where dragons can live. Where someone gives help." Trevor looked at Kaida and then at his small garage. "We don't really have space." Kaida said firmly, "We'll make room." She walked slowly toward the 3 dragons, knowing how scared they were better than anyone else. "I'm Kaida. This is Trevor. It's safe here. Come in." That night, the garage became a safe place. Trevor brought more food and blankets. Kaida talked to each dragon and heard their stories. Ember was the name of the burned one. It was thrown away after a fire at a breeding facility. Ash was the 3-legged one who got hurt in a shuttle crash and was left behind. Slate, who was blind, was thought to be useless after an illness damaged his eyes. After they had settled the new arrivals, Trevor said, "We can't keep working like this. We need more room. More resources." Kaida said, "Then we get them. We make something real. Something that will last." They had filed the papers to make Briggs and Kaida Engineering Cooperative official within a week. The first legal dragon-human partnership on any station. The magistrate's decision had set a standard. Other dragons in the area started asking for personhood status. Some people won. A few people lost. The talk had begun though, and it couldn't be stopped. Rita Chin helped them find a bigger place to live in Sector 8. It had 3 work bays, an office, and a big common area that would be great for dragon quarters. The rent was high, but they always had customers because of their good name. Kaida helped each dragon that she saved on its own. Ember was scared of heat, but Kaida patiently showed her that not all warmth was bad. Ash had trouble with balance, so Trevor made him a custom prosthetic limb. Slate couldn't see, but Kaida found out that he had amazing hearing and taught him how to tell what was wrong by sound. "Ember, you did this for me," she told him one night. "Trevor saw my potential beyond my flaws. We now do the same for other people." Each dragon learned technical skills that were right for them. Ember got really good at working with delicate circuits because her small claws were great for tight spaces. Ash was very good at making heavy structural repairs, using her strength in creative ways. Slate's acoustic analysis was the best. It found problems that no other scanner could. 3 months after the hearing, their cooperative had 5 dragons working for them and a 3-week wait list. They had become the most popular place to get repairs in 4 areas. But the real work was to get better. Telling dragons who had been told they were worthless that they were valuable. Showing people who had been property that they could be partners. Trevor kept doing his daily work with Kaida's wing therapy. The brace had worked and her wing got stronger every week. The bent bone had straightened out enough that she could now fully extend it. One night, Trevor gave her something new. A light flight support that was made to help her with her first flights. "It's time," he said. "Your wing is ready." Kaida looked at the device, her heart racing with fear and excitement. "What if I can't? What if I'm too hurt to ever fly right?" Trevor said, "Then we'll change and try again. But you'll never know until you try. And I believe you are stronger than you think." The next day they went to the observation deck in the cargo bay. It was huge, big enough for a dragon to fly safely and used to test shuttle maneuvers. Kaida stood at the edge, her wings shining with flight support. Her heart raced. She hadn't flown since she was a baby, before the accident that changed her life. "I am scared," she said. "I know," Trevor said. "But you're also ready. Have faith in yourself." Kaida closed her eyes and felt the wind blowing through the bay. She could feel the power in her wings as they worked together for the first time in years. Then she leaped. She fell for a terrible second. The ground came up quickly. She had failed just like she always did. Her wings caught the wind. The two of them. The twisted one answered, thanks to the brace and months of careful healing. She wasn't falling. She was gliding along. She flapped once just to see what would happen. Rose 6 feet tall. Flapped again. Rose higher. Her technique was bad and she hadn't practiced, but she was flying. Flying for real. She cried as she flew through the cargo bay, wobbling and unsure but still in the air. The ground fell away. She felt whole for the first time since she was born. When she finally got there, Trevor was smiling so much it looked like it hurt. He asked, "What did it feel like?" "Like being whole," Kaida said softly. "Like coming home to a body I'd forgotten I had." The other dragons at the cooperative were excitedly waiting. Ember's eyes lit up with hope when Kaida said she had flown. "Do you think I could fly too?" she asked. "My wings work, but I've never tried." "Then we'll show you how," Kaida said. "All of you. We will teach each other everything we were told we couldn't do." Kaida had a deep realization that night, when she was surrounded by rescued dragons and the person who had started it all. Trevor didn't just help her. He had taught her how to save herself. And now they were working together to build something that would help a lot of other people. A place where damage didn't make you who you are. Where pain from the past didn't affect what could happen in the future. Where things that were broken could get better and stronger because they were broken. The cooperative was not just a business. It was proof that being nice could make a difference in the world, one person at a time. And they were just getting started. 6 months after the hearing, Kaida stood on the observation deck of the cargo bay and watched the sunrise simulation cycle through the huge window of Station Helios 7. The fake star made everything look like it was made of gold and amber, and for a moment she could almost believe she was on a real planet with a real sky. The heavy brace was no longer needed for her wing. Trevor had put in a light support frame that she only wore on long flights. The broken bone had healed as much as it ever would, which was enough. More than enough. The doors to the cargo bay opened behind her. Trevor came in with 2 cups of coffee, but Kaida couldn't drink it. He just liked the routine of bringing 2 as if they were equals taking a break in the morning. He said, "Big day," and gave her the container anyway. She held it and liked how warm it felt against her claws. "Yes, I'm nervous," she said. Today they were talking to the station council. 3 other stations had asked for help setting up similar cooperatives. Kaida's case had started a movement, and now they had to show other people how to make it work. Trevor said, "You'll be great. You always are." Kaida looked at him, this normal person in worn-out coveralls who had somehow changed everything. "Do you ever wish you hadn't done it? Taking me that day?" Trevor laughed. "Regret? You're the best choice I ever made, Kaida. The cooperative is doing well. We're helping people that no one else would. We're making new laws. Why would I feel bad about any of that? Because it's hard now. We have employees, rules, and reporters always asking questions. You could have just had a quiet repair shop." Trevor said, "Quiet and alone. No thanks. I'll take hard and important any day." They stood in silence, feeling at ease, and watched the light change through the viewport. "I used to come here a lot," Kaida said softly. "Before you. Back when I was still at the exchange center. They'd let me out once a week to work out, and I'd watch ships come and go from observation decks like this one." "What were you thinking?" "Mostly endings. I can picture myself disappearing into space and just floating away until I no longer exist. It seemed easier than staying the same thing that everyone hated." She looked down at her nails. "I couldn't picture a future in which I was important. Where no one thought of me as a mistake." Trevor's hand touched her shoulder. "Thank you for staying." "Me too. Some days I still can't believe this is happening. That I'm free. I have a job I love, friends, and a reason to live." She turned to look at him. "You gave me all of that." "No," Trevor said firmly. "I gave you room and safety. You did everything else on your own. The smarts, the skills, and the bravery to speak up at that hearing. That was all you. But I wouldn't have found any of it if you hadn't looked past how I looked." That made Trevor think. Maybe. But do you know what I learned from all of this? Most people aren't mean. They just don't know how to see. When they look at someone else, they only see what's wrong, what's missing, and what doesn't fit their expectations. They never look deeper. He pointed at the viewport. Everyone who walked by you in that exchange center saw a broken dragon. But you weren't hurt. You were just waiting for someone to really see you and not just what you looked like. And you saw. Trevor said simply, and I saw someone amazing. Kaida's communicator rang, breaking up their conversation. Ember was messaging from the cooperative. 3 more dragons had come overnight. They were refugees from a breeding facility that had closed down. They needed help. Kaida said, "We should go." "In a minute." Trevor pointed to the window. "You said you used to come to places like this to think about endings. What do you think about now that you're here?" Kaida opened her wings and both of them opened up smoothly. The one with the scars would never be perfect, but it worked. Made her feel better. It let her go. "Beginnings," she said. "I think about all the dragons we still need to help. All the rules that need to be changed. All the people out there who think they're worthless because someone told them they were." She carefully folded her wings. "I think about how one person's kindness made small waves that grew into big waves. How your decision to help one broken dragon somehow began to change whole systems." Trevor corrected, "Our choice. You decided to trust me. To say something. To fight. This only worked because we both agreed to it." They walked back to the cooperative together, talking about the presentation, the new people who had come, and plans for growth. There was a lot of activity in the building in the morning. Ember was already at her desk. Her burned scales were no longer a source of shame. They were a reminder that she had survived. With her prosthetic leg, Ash moved around the office like she had never been stronger. Slate was showing a new dragon how to figure out what's wrong by listening. Rita-chan was also there, bringing supplies and talking to the dragons like they were old friends. Kellen was waiting for a routine maintenance check. His cargo hauler was running better than ever. A dozen other familiar faces filled the bays. These were people who had become part of their community. This was what they had made. It's not just a business, it's a family. Move. Trevor went to his office to get ready for the presentation, and Kaida went to greet the new people. 3 dragons were huddled together in the reception area, just like they had been 6 months ago. Afraid. Not working. They were sure they were worthless. She was very familiar with that feeling. And she knew how to get around it. "Hello," she said softly. "Hey, I'm Kaida. Welcome home." The smallest one, a dragon with wings that weren't right and would never fly, looked up at her. "Is it real? That dragons can be free here? That we're not just things?" Kaida said, "It's true. You're not a piece of property. You're a person. And we're going to help you keep that in mind." Kaida saw her reflection in a polished hull panel as she settled the newcomers, answered their scared questions, and started to explain how the cooperative worked. She saw her scales that didn't match, the same patchwork of dull colors she'd always had. Saw her eye that was cloudy and would never see clearly. Saw her scarred wing which had a permanent twist. But she no longer saw ugly things. She saw how to stay alive. Power. Proof that it was possible to heal. For years, people had only seen what was wrong with her. They had told her she was broken, useless, and worthless. They had only looked at her flaws and not at the intelligence, determination, and ability to love that were hidden beneath the surface. Trevor had looked more closely. And in doing so, he taught her to look deeper at herself. She wasn't hurt. She had never been hurt. She was still in the process of becoming and growing. And maybe that was true for everyone. Maybe everyone was still healing from something, still growing into who they were meant to be. The presentation to the station council went off without a hitch. Kaida talked about the cooperative's model, how treating all living things with respect was important, and how helping the weak made whole communities stronger. She answered questions with confidence, backed up by data, testimonials, and the fact that what they'd built had worked. 3 stations promised to set up similar programs. 2 more asked for help with consultations. The movement was getting bigger and bigger, like fire spreading through dry grass. That night, Trevor found Kaida on the roof landing pad at the cooperative. She was practicing flying by moving her rebuilt wing through more and more complicated motions. "Showing off," he yelled. She fell down in a spiral and landed smoothly next to him. "Testing the limits. Seeing what can be done. And more than I thought. Always more than I thought." She folded her wings and smiled even though she was breathing hard. "Trevor, I have something to tell you." He was patient. "When you found me at that exchange center, I was just trying to stay alive until I couldn't anymore. I had given up on living, on being important, and on being anything but unwanted." Her voice was steady and sure. "You didn't just save my life. You showed me that my life was worth living. That I was worth the time and effort to get better." She looked down at the cooperative and saw the lights in the work bays where dragons and people worked together as equals. "Now we get to show other people how to do that. We get to be what you were to me for them. What we were to each other," Trevor said softly. You taught me a lot too. About bravery. About being strong. About how hard it is to keep hoping when the world tells you not to. Kaida smiled, and it was easier for her to do so than it had ever been. We work well together. Trevor agreed, the best. They stood together on the landing pad, watching the station's evening cycle dim the lights, watching ships come and go through the docking ports, and watching their cooperative hum with purpose and life. Kaida had been a broken dragon in a forgotten corner, waiting to be thrown away. Now that she was free and healed, she was helping others find the same freedom. All because one normal person made an unusual choice. To look beyond the surface. To see value where others only saw damage. To think that things that are broken can be beautiful and that healing is always possible. That was the real story in the end. Not about people, dragons, cooperatives, or court cases. It was about picking kindness over being mean when it was easier. About seeing people when society said there were only things. About having faith in possibilities when others only saw limits. One simple truth changed everything. Everyone deserves respect, dignity, and the chance to find out who they really are. And sometimes all it takes is one person who is willing to do something about that truth to change the world.